All right, good morning and welcome to another episode of College Talk Tuesday with Pearl and Andy Lockwood from Lockwood College Prep. We specialize in helping kids get into top competitive colleges that actually pay off for them. There's a little return on investment action there. And Pearl specializes in doing all the financial aid forms, the strategies, trying to get more money so that you can afford college without breaking a sweat and having to eat mac and cheese every night. Nothing against mac and cheese. Good morning, Pearl.
Good morning, Andy.
This is our second day in a row on the air on Facebook. We have not been canceled yet. Yesterday, we did a client-only session where we went over a few of the, I guess, a summary of the changes to the FAFSA. So we're currently working on putting together a cheat sheet for the FAFSA changes. So we should talk a little bit about those, but not too much.
Okay.
And then I want to talk about some stuff in the news, which I found was particularly interesting over the last week or so. And if you have any questions, more importantly, that's really what these sessions are for. So if you have any questions about getting into college, paying for college, SAT prep, ACT prep, why even go to college,
What you should be doing now, depending on what grade your student is in. Oh, yep.
that was awkward. So, all right, let's start off with a little bit of news first, and then we'll get into the FAFSA changes. So, Yale University is suspending their lacrosse season for next year. Apparently, a bunch of the students, I think, student athletes, I think 30 of them, maybe more, decided not to come back.
Even in the face of the country getting vaccinated and all by then. Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Go figure.
Well, maybe those lax bros know something
Perhaps.
with their mullets and I don't know, secret handshakes. Okay. Another story of note was that Concordia College, which is in Bronxville, is closing, and their campus is being purchased.
This sounds like a prediction of mine from our predictions webinar.
It's being purchased by Iona.
And this is exact. This is not surprising. That is actually, these are two mids to small size school. Well, certainly the first one is. And yeah, this was the trend I had predicted in our predictions webinar last week, for those of you who caught it, that small liberal arts schools are, before the pandemic, were suffering financially. And now, how are they going to struggle to survive, if they're going to survive? Before they pack it in, I predicted that I believe some of these smaller consortiums will band together, merge perhaps, and try to stay afloat.
Psychic Pearl. So I'm not surprised by that aspect of it, but I'm a little surprised that Iona is the one buying the campus, but I don't know what the terms are, so it might be, dollars, pennies on the dollar type of thing. Right. Iona's been in the news recently for their athletics. So you may not be aware of this as a non-college sports follower, and I'm barely in that category. But their basketball team is being coached by Rick Pitino, who was a scandal-ridden, unfortunately, coach for Louisville. But I think he won NCAA titles with Louisville and Kentucky. He's a great coach, and now he's at this, I guess I don't even know if they're considered a mid-major, but, Kentucky and Louisville are up here. He burst on the scene with coaching Providence College in the 80s with Billy Donovan, who's now a coach in the NBA, but Billy the Kid was his big point guard who took them into the NCAA tournament. And now here he is, in the twilight maybe of his coaching career at little rinky-dink Iona College. And I wish him good luck, because I actually think he's a great coach. Fun fact, which really has nothing to do with any of the stuff we usually talk about, but when I was growing up in Boston, he was the coach at BU. And I attended Boston College basketball camp for a few years when I was in junior high, and he was there as faculty. So, I saw him in action. He coached me, in passing. But I remember one of the coolest things that he ever did was he was doing a demonstration. So we would have lunch, and then we would go back and we'd all sit like under the basket in the old Roberts Center. It's not there anymore. Now it's the Conti Forum, but the gym. This is when Doug Flutie was at BC, so he was hanging around there. It was like a golden era. And he did this. I remember he did this one drill where he was showing us how quickly he could shoot the ball, and he had this guy guarding him, who later went on to play for Villanova. His name was Mark Plansky, also irrelevant, who was like 6'7", and Rick Pitino was like maybe 5'10", and they were about this far apart from each other. And Pitino's like, okay, now block my shot. So as the guy would start to block his shot, Pitino would just shoot it.
Wow.
And he made like 5 in a row. And I was like, this guy, like, he's just like a little coach. Like, who, how good is he? Well, it turned out he went to UMass. He played with Dr. J. And he was a great instructor also. So then, then he became Rick Pitino when he went to Providence, and then he, Kentucky and Louisville. I hope that he does something to help Ionis, rebirth themselves.
Maybe that's part of the plan.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. So possibly, they're making a move to become to create more of a footprint for themselves
on a national level.
Yeah.
Certainly, it's always been a reliable local New York school, but perhaps it's going to follow in the trends of some of the other schools that have really elevated its national profile. Schools, that we joke amongst ourselves that when we were all applying to college, you always say, oh, you need a C and a drug habit or whatever to get in there. For example, like University of Miami, which is back in the day, is near impossible to get into now. It's right along on people's lists right there with the Ivies. Same with Northeastern. That's another school that changed its profile dramatically, entered the national stage, certainly. Who knows?
Admitted Lizzie Lockwood recently.
She loves when you share that information.
Yeah, exactly. Good morning to Sarah Kim. Good morning to Chris Couch. If you guys have any questions or you just want to say hi, please pop them in the comments here. Please give us some sort of positive emoji. I don't know what the latest ones are, likes, hearts, but share. That'd be great if you could share this.
Hands with mittens, guy with mittens.
Sharing is caring, and it also helps us get more of this information out. Not so much about me at basketball camp in the 80s, but in terms of helping you navigate the overly complicated, stressful college admissions and
ever-changing college process.
Yes. All right. Another change update, which I find amusing, is a story from NBC News. More than 1,000 Columbia University students are on tuition strike to demand that the institution lower its costs in light of the financial burdens imposed by COVID-19. So how misguided is that?
How smart are these Columbia admits?
Well, there's book smart, and then there's...
May I introduce you to the 4,000 other schools that are available to you, Columbia student?
Yeah.
If you don't like it.
So here's the deal. If I'm one of these kids, I'm thinking, okay, I just want more money because of the increased burden on me. I don't know what the increased burden on them beyond having to go to classes online really is. I think colleges are the ones with these burdens. Some of these colleges are spending $10 million in the face of declining revenue from students not showing up, related directly and indirectly to testing for coronavirus. So they have higher expenses and lower revenue. They're laying off all sorts of employees, including some professors. They're cutting athletic programs occasionally.
Yeah, big source of the income for these schools.
So they're under fire. So I don't really know how far these Columbia students are going to get by going on tuition strike.
Any predictions on that?
Yeah, like you said, they will be attending other colleges,
or they'll
perhaps Iona.
Perhaps.
Yeah. so
it's close by.
All right, so let's go to the comments before we reiterate some of the new changes for the FAFSA. All right, Sarah Kim, my daughter got into UMiami, but only $12,000 merit aid. Are we not eligible for need? We are not eligible for need-based aid. My daughter got into UMiami.
I always make that mistake.
I'm trying to make it brighter, Pearl. Back off. Do schools are more schools giving need-based than merit-based this year? No, there's more merit-based this year. As far as I can tell, it's still early.
Yes. And there's going to be, understandably, many appeals based on the disparity of people's current financial situations as compared to the intact calendar year of 2019, which is the base year that the financial aid forms are based on. So we expect a plethora of appeals. And so unfortunately, if you don't have egregious circumstances, I am not sure of your likelihood of success in this precarious year.
But if you have offers from schools that Miami competes with,
of course,
then you play them off against each other.
Absolutely.
All righty. Chris Couch is wondering, where's Bernie? He's out shoveling.
Put him to work.
Yeah. He's just sitting there on his ass. It's annoying.
Yeah.
And Arnold, good morning to you. And
good morning, Nancy Davidson and Phoebe. Hi, Phoebe.
Special hello to Phoebe.
Yes.
You're gonna make Nancy feel bad.
I'm not gonna make Nancy
because you're like
everybody,
like Nancy, and then you're like Phoebe.
No, I love everybody, but
okay.
Phoebe's a family member.
All right, then Cheryl Henry responded to Sarah Kim saying it appears that more schools, that more schools are giving need-based than merit. I really thought my daughter would have gotten more in merit scholarships. Yeah, I haven't, like I said, it's early, but I have not experienced that. I think there's more merit going out there. Need is also in the eye of the beholder, and there's a lot of time left to negotiate.
I just also want to point out.
Wait, can you put in the chat, because I don't trust my fingers? Mm-hmm. We are holding an on-demand class on how to negotiate, so that can you just put in appealsclass.com in case anyone's interested in that. The price is going to go up after next week. This is sort of a promotional period that ends on Sunday. And you should always try to get more money. You may not succeed at all, or you may not succeed the first or second time. I wrote an email today about a client of mine from a year ago. We went through 4 rounds of negotiating, and ultimately she went from $0 to like $38,000 per year, we think, for Penn. But she was told no, and then finally yes. So some arguments are good in terms of appealing, such as you have better offers from other schools if you are appealing merit. Sometimes need-based appeals work in terms of, I know my numbers look one way from my tax returns from 2 years ago, but the reality since then is a lot less rosy. Here's what's going on: lower income, maybe higher expenses, that type of thing. And sometimes it's both. Sometimes we have a whole other story, and we have other offers.
Just going to throw in a comment. And then what I have noticed when people are seeking to appeal, I just want to distinguish between, let's say you work for a job and you need to get reimbursed on expenses you've spent. And so therefore you're collecting all your receipts and giving an itemized list of everything you've spent so that your employer could pay you back. I would be careful with taking that same approach with appealing your financial aid award. I would certainly go with your strongest, most compelling, objective arguments, that which anyone would say, oh boy, you lost, concrete $50,000 for my income. That's, but I would not couple that with, and we had to spend money on Clorox wipes. And we actually, when we took our daughter to school, we needed to spend a night in a hotel, which we would not, whatever. The point is, I wouldn't get into the minutia because more is not always better. Less is more. Give your strongest arguments. And we know, and one could assume all these other inconveniences and hardships, but you got to think about the fact that your circumstances are going to be read in light and in context of thousands of other circumstances that might be worse.
Yeah, like job loss, illness, the real traumatic things, not I had to buy some Clorox wipes.
Right.
Which we spent a little bit of time on yesterday for our clients. And have some perspective, please.
Right.
Okay. So a couple comments here about the FAFSA changes. Tony Ann weighing in here. And I agree with you. Can't get over the new FAFSA changes of 2 kids in college at the same time.
Right.
That was our dilemma. That's one of the biggest ones. So just to summarize,
right.
These changes don't take place until
2023.
So there is some time. One of the changes for the FAFSA,
right,
is it used to improve your eligibility. You used to double your eligibility when you went from one kid to two children in college at the same time, assuming everything else was the same,
right?
Income, savings, whatever. They took that away. Apparently, outgoing Senator Lamar Alexander is responsible for that. That being said, we don't think that that's going to pertain to most of the clients in our world or people that, like you guys, particularly because the schools that our clients tend to go to are usually, not always, CSS profile colleges. So they wouldn't have gotten money anyway at the schools that only require the FAFSA, because those are mostly state universities that don't have money. But the CSS profile schools are generally private colleges that do have money. There is no overhaul to the CSS profile on the horizon, as far as we know. It is way more complicated. The FAFSA was simplified. The profile is the opposite. It's extremely complicated. So I don't think that's necessarily going to affect anyone, except the one scenario that we talked about briefly yesterday for our clients was, well, what happens for these colleges that require the CSS profile and the FAFSA when you're applying initially for freshman year, and then the following year require only the FAFSA, which is a trend that you picked up on because you have a lot of returning student clients, and your hypothesis is what?
That some of the schools that only required it in their freshman year are going to require it for all of the years.
The CSS profile.
That's right. Because it is big. Now it's a big difference from the FAFSA, and it, in and of itself, they could not get all this other information from the FAFSA alone, that which they want to evaluate. Not just your federal eligibility, but the CSS profile evaluates your institutional eligibility for aid at that particular institution.
So there's been a few other changes too, which I'm just going to rattle off right now, and you can just jump in if you need to. So changes to the status of separated. You have to be legally separated. Yes. Otherwise, you're still considered married. Yep. Some untaxed income is no longer penalized in the financial aid formulas. One of the big ones was child support. That used to be penalized at a higher rate. Now it's going to be penalized at a much lower rate. They're asking about race now on the financial aid forms.
Race and ethnicity. Must declare it.
I'm not sure about ethnicity. You think ethnicity also? Okay. And is it how you identify, or is it your actual race and actual ethnicity?
It's your actual race and your actual ethnicity.
Okay.
But that is a great question, because then, of course, that's going to, well, what percentage of a certain race? And do I have to do 23andMe to determine exactly what races do I belong to?
I always wondered how much of the revenue of 23andMe comes from kids applying to college or families to try to figure out if they can shoehorn themselves in.
It's unequivocally clear that it matters.
Not so clear that it matters, Pearl. You are hypothesizing. It is not clear.
I'm not hypothesizing. I know for a fact that some schools have absolutely put as part of their agenda to identify and have certain percentage of persons of color.
Okay, but for financial aid, we don't know if it matters. We just know that it's being
tracked.
Except
we know that it's affirmatively now being included as a separate additional questions in the 2023 form that doesn't exist now.
Sidebar, Zuck, if you're watching, please keep us on. We love being on your platform. She doesn't mean to say anything negative. Please don't cancel us out because we can't get on Parler. Okay. What else? Other changes. The Pell Grants got a little bit easier, but they didn't really increase the amounts. It's now a little bit easier to appeal because financial aid officers have more discretion, a little bit more discretion. They also locked in the definition of total cost of attendance, which apparently was a little bit fuzzy before. I went through until my eyes glazed over, which didn't take long. The Reconciliation Act, something or other bill, the law that was passed, which is 5,900 and something pages, and the college stuff, the FAFSA overhaul, which was really designed to simplify the FAFSA. So that's the big change, from 108 questions down to 30 something questions. But of course, there's about 40 pages of stuff in this law that I tried to comb through yesterday. And that's on top of the already existing 1,100 pages of regulations that pertain to the FAFSA before these regulations. So, but those are the main, unless I forgot anything, I think those are the main changes.
I would say, yeah, I'm just trying to think if there are any other big ones. Nope, okay. You got them.
All right. So any other questions here? Good morning to Melissa. Michelle sharing our post with a couple of people. Thank you. Anyone who's sharing, like Michelle, sharing is caring. Thank you very much. What else? Michelle has a question. I tried to dispute the amount of help that my daughter was getting, and they told me to do a Parent Plus loan, which I explained to them would be a greater hardship. They told me they would only help if I got denied for a Plus loan. Yeah, that's not financial aid. That's just a loan. But that reminds me of another big change, which was I started to talk about this. Students used to be penalized for untaxed income, and this is not really untaxed income, but when a grandparent opened up a 529 and then paid the college tuition on behalf of their grandchild, that would reduce the child's financial aid award the following year. That is no longer the case.
Right.
So that's not directly on point with Michelle, but you just reminded me of that change. So that's a big change. That's a positive change.
Yes.
And there's other previously penalizing untaxed income that's no longer penalizing, such as I think it's workman's comp and veterans benefits.
Right.
Okay. All right, Pearl. Any other questions here? Tony Ann says her daughter asked about 23andMe. Yeah.
Go for it.
That is funny.
It's worth, I don't know how much it costs, but it might be worth a lot of shekels for you if you find out that you're from one of the classes of people that they are.
Wouldn't it be funny if that was like the next scam?
Giving spots to. What? It's
utterly
predictable.
If it's not already.
Utterly predictable that.
By 23andMe.
Like you mean they are negatively involved
in all
this?
These people who like claim they were black, but they were really white, and you know, in the news, the NCAA person and all that. Wouldn't that be funny?
Well, big apologies.
Wouldn't that be funny if there was like a 23andMe scam site that made everyone, you know, a certain race?
Yes, certain percentage. What percentage of that's how it's going to get further broken down?
Yeah.
If you are less than 8%, 8.2% of
Zuck. Okay, sorry. He just texted me. We got to stop.
Sorry.
So
I'm going to hit my reprogramming session now.
Your woke shop.
My woke shop.
She gets credit for that one. So clearly, we're out of stuff to talk about today. Thank you for joining us. If you're watching this on replay and you have any questions, pop them in. As long as we're not canceled, we will answer them.
Get the cane. Have a great week.
All right. Bye.